So when it come to the Civil War, you had the Confederates that marched into Kentucky thinking that they were going to win some converts over. But unfortunately, you had too many Kentuckians that were stuck on their farms. You couldn't get them off their farms. They had very comfortable lives, and their cows were fat. And so even though it was said that Kentucky was brother versus brother, the percentage is actually 20% of Kentuckians fought for the Confederacy, but 80% of the Kentuckians fought for the North. They fought for the Union. They fought for America. And so I just have this passage here where you have Braxton Bragg, who goes into Kentucky thinking that he's going to encourage the local population to fight, to join his army. So he isn't just invading, Kentucky. It's not just a damn raid. It's a recruitment opportunity. But it doesn't end up like that. As they crossed the border into Kentucky, Braxton Bragg paused to issue a proclamation. Kentuckians, I've entered your state to restore to you the liberties of which you have been deprived by a cruel and relentless foe. If you prefer federal rule, show it by your frowns, and we shall return whence we came. If you choose rather to come within the folds of our brotherhood, then cheer us with the smiles of your women and lend your willing hands to secure you in your heritage of liberty. He's actually going to execute a Kentuckian for deserting and going back to his mother and sisters on the farm. So that's what happens when you join the Confederates, right? You give a year of your life in fighting the good fight, right? Not really. And the reason why I'm talking about Braxton Bragg is because you just had the Department of Defense that changed Fort Liberty back to Fort Bragg. And if that isn't a perfect analogy, we're going to take away freedom. Fort Liberty is a great name for a fort. And they renamed it Bragg, but they didn't go back to Braxton Bragg. They used his namesake, and they said that it was actually this other guy from World War II. Basically a nobody. But because they did admit that it wasn't the Confederates that they were going to go back to, Kentucky women treated the ragged soldiers to plenty of smiles, but few of the men came forward to fight for the South. Most of those inclined to do so had joined the Confederate Army a year earlier. The others preferred to join a winter, and Braxton Bragg had not yet proved himself that even though his army captured a Union garrison of 4,000 at Munfordville, only 60 miles south of Louisville, perhaps Kentuckians understood what Braxton Bragg did not realize, that Braxton Bragg's invasion was really just a large-scale raid. The rebels had neither the manpower nor the resources to convert a raid into an occupation in defense of the state against aroused federal countermeasures. Already, Don Carlos Buell had been reinforced to a strength of 55,000 by 2 divisions from U.S. Grant and another on the way, while 60,000 new Union recruits were organizing in Louisville and Cincinnati. Braxton Bragg's apparent military success and political failure caused his mood to fluctuate from elation to despondency. On September 18th, he wrote to his wife, "We've made the most extraordinary campaign in military history." But a few days later, he expressed himself sadly disappointed in the want of action by our friends in Kentucky. "We have so far received no accession to this army." Nobody joined the Confederates from Kentucky. Nobody did. I mean, I find that shocking because there's a lot of fucking Confederate flags still today. What is this, about 160 years later? Enthusiasm runs wild but exhausts itself in words. The people here have too many fat cattle and are too well off to fight unless a change occurs soon. We must abandon the garden spot of Kentucky to its own cupidity. What does cupidity mean? They said that they didn't love nor respect Braxton Bragg. Cupidity refers to an intense desire for wealth and material gain, often associated with greed or avarice. Avarice. How do you say Avarice. 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 So greed, avarice. It's the strong, selfish craving for money or possession, sometimes to the point of being excessive or immoral. In literature and conversation, it's often used to highlight the negative side of someone's desires, like when ambition turns to greed. For example, you might say his cupidity led him to make unethical decisions just to increase his wealth. It's a word that paints a pretty stark picture of unchecked greed. Yeah, it's unchecked greed. It's not that the Confederates are a bunch of terrorist pieces of shit, a bunch of racist, terrorists, white supremacists who wasn't fighting for liberty. If you were actually fighting to oppress your fellow human being, you weren't fighting for freedom. You weren't fighting for liberty. That is not the definition of liberty. I was reading another thing about Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was banned in the South. So they don't even believe in free speech. They banned Uncle Tom's Cabin in the South. So what liberties were you talking about? The liberties to abuse the black man? The liberties to control? That's not liberty, it's power. Again, we're confusing words here. By definition, power is control over other people, and liberty is freedom. When you got a boot on someone's neck and you have to make somebody do something, are you not enslaved to the slaves because you have to put your boot on their neck? You always got to put your boot on somebody's neck? I mean, that's going to be exhausting. How's that freedom? It's not. It's not freedom at all. It's not freedom at all.